Okay, so let's get started. What is going to be very powerful with our conversation today about negotiation and negotiating techniques is I'm going to come from a place of something that I'm finalizing my certification on, right? So I'm finalizing my certification on neuro-linguistics programming. Some people may have heard of it. It's called NLP. I've done all the courses and everything, but there's documentation that has to be submitted, like a lot of documentation. Matter of fact, I finished the training videos probably the middle of January. I finished the training videos, and it's taken me close to 2 months to submit everything that's required for me to get the certificate. So that's how intense. It took almost 9 months just to go through all the videos, over 400 hours of content. So when I say, we're going to coach you and that I've been trained and that I've been coached, I've invested a lot of money and I've invested a lot of time to get the strategies and the resources that not only we're going to talk about here today, as it relates to because negotiation, the techniques and the strategies that I learned and that we're going to talk about here today when it comes to negotiation is just a small, very, very small part or portion compared to the overall strategies and resources that you all have access to or will have access to in our coaching sessions. And just, allow me to be your broker and your leader at Brooks & Davis Real Estate Firm. I took it as extremely important that for you all to get what you needed out of this business and to get trained and develop the right way, that I had to step my game up. I had to get more versed. I had to get more trained. I put my money where my mouth is. So I know that what I bring to the table as it relates to you all learning and growing and developing, that I'm the leader for you. So I'm very intentional. It's extremely important that I'm able to deliver to you all what's needed to help you grow and be successful in this business. So a little bit about NLP before we jump into it, just so you can be clear on when I say neuro-linguistics programming, what I'm saying is that the neuro part of that word deals with our nervous system and our mind, which we use to experience the world. So the neuro is, and as it relates to the negotiation training, the words and the techniques that we're going to be using, they impact the senses of the individual. So we're talking about visual, audio, kinesthetic, which is touch, it's your feel. Gustatory is eating, and smell. So when we create verbiage, whether that's an email, whether that's a text message, whether that's an actual phone call, and we formulate the verbiage that we're going to use, we're taking the person processing what we're saying. They may process it in, if not one of those 5 senses, in some instances, all of them participate or contribute to what they receive from what we're saying and the meaning that they place on it. So that's the neuro part of it. And and through that training, I've learned how to manipulate those aspects. All right, the linguistics. So it's neuro-linguistic. So that's language, right? So that's synonym for language, and language and other communication. And at the end of the day, language and communication is about how we store experience and how we give it meaning, and that's the crazy thing about it. Most of the miscommunication that takes place is because the person is not getting the meaning that you're trying to portray. And the reason that they're not getting the meaning that you're trying to portray is because you've said it out of certain filters, and these filters come from numerous places, most, from experiences, from, situations, from environments. We've created filters in our mind, and we speak through those filters. Well, no two people have the same filters. So although I'm speaking through my filter, you're receiving it through your filters. And guess what happens? It gets distorted. So the meaning gets distorted because it's coming out of my filters going into your filters. So by the time it gets to you, you've processed it and given it a completely different meaning than what my intention was. And most people stop there, and that's why communication doesn't work. And that's why there are additional steps when it comes to verifying that someone is clear on the meaning that you're trying to portray, right? So when we talk about good communication skills and being skilled in communication, it's not something that you're born with. You have to be taught. It's techniques in becoming a good communicator. And when we talk about negotiation, that's all we're really talking about is how skilled are you going to be when it comes to communication? Because that's really what negotiation is about. All right, so the linguistic piece. And most of us, we store experiences a number of ways. We store them through pictures, sounds, feelings, smells. And we've all experienced it. I still experience it to this day. There are certain songs, when I hear them on the radio, it take me back to a time. It take me back to a moment, to an experience when I hear that song. There are certain smells that you can have, and it'll take you back to a time, whether that's those times, those Thanksgivings where you was with your family, or those times when your mom used to make that cake. Those smells, they'll take you back because we store experiences using those things. Pictures, there are certain places you can go to, and you see that place, and it takes you back. When I come to the office, I pass that place that Asteroid used to be. And every time I pass that place, it takes me back to these moments in time of Astroworld and the experiences and all the things that I had. That's how our brains work. And that's how everybody's brains work. And through Neuro-Linguistics programming or NLP, you can be trained on how to leverage that understanding of how the mind works for you to achieve outcomes, because that's all this is about. It's about achieving results. It's about achieving outcomes that you want to achieve. All right. So now, and then the last part of the NLP or the Neuro-Linguistics programming is programming. And what that means is humans, and I know you all have probably heard this, that we're creatures of habits. As we go through life, whether, and as we're born, as we come out of our mom's womb and we're children and we grow through this journey of life, what we end up doing is we end up creating patterns. And a lot of these patterns are created and instilled and stamped in our preliminary years 1 through 7. So there are things that you're doing to this day as a grown adult that you're doing to this day that you were first introduced, it was first stamped into your life when you was in pre-K and you ain't broke it yet, right? And a lot of that is getting in the way of the outcomes that you're trying to achieve because you ain't broke that thing. You ain't broke that program. You ain't broke that pattern, right? See, our brains are just computers. And here's the thing about a computer. Computers operate off of programs. If there's a particular thing you want this computer to do, then there's an operating system that we put in that computer to get the output that we want, right? So that means the output that this computer gives us is contingent on the input that we put into it, right? Well, that's the same way that our brains work. The outputs that we're getting, that means the outcomes that you're getting in your life, the results that you're getting in your life are contingent on what the inputs that you've received. And a lot of our inputs that we receive happen real young, and they're patterns, and they have to be broken. And we have to just like if a computer's acting up, you got to uninstall that program, and then you got to either reinstall it or install a new program. If your computer goes haywire, a lot of our brains are going haywire. So that's the program. So we got to discover the programs. We got to discover the patterns and the strategies right now that are running our mind and moving us out of the direction that we want to move in. So I wanted to give kind of that brief talk on NLP, like that just scratches the surface. Again, the one-on-one coaching is where you really want to spend time with me about it, because that's where the transformation and the shift, the mind shift happens. because I'm using these strategies and techniques. Most of the time, y'all don't even know I'm using them. And you probably won't know that I'm using them. But know that what I do and what I say and the direction that we move, it's all for a purpose. So now when we come into negotiation, obviously I don't have enough time to teach you NLP, but we're going to talk about some strategies and resources that I've learned through this process that can allow you to be in a more effective, and I'm going to say negotiator, but what I'm really saying is to be a more effective communicator. And what effective communication looks like is you being able to achieve the outcomes that you want to achieve through how you communicate. You being able to achieve the results that you want to achieve through how you communicate. That's what negotiation is. All right, so everybody ready to go? Come on, let me hear you. If you ain't gonna show me.
Let's go, let's go.
There we go, yes.
I'm ready.
Yes, Michael, yes. Yes, we're ready. All right, let me share my screen. Let's go. Let's jump into this thing. All right, so negotiating and influencing. All right, I'm assuming everybody can see my screen. Let me know if you can't. All right, so when it comes to negotiating, the first thing we want to do, and if it's kind of a serious negotiation, especially in the beginning, you want to plan it out. You want to plan out your negotiation. All right. Now, once you've done a number of, and you've got extremely comfortable in a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today, then the planning phase of it may not be as extensive. But the one takeaway is that you definitely want to plan it. So, and in the first part of your planning, and this kind of speaks to the 5 steps to negotiation. The first part of the planning is that you want to determine what is the outcome that you're trying to achieve. What is the outcome as it relates to this negotiation that you are trying to achieve? That's the very first outcome. I mean, the very first step of planning the negotiation. And to not overcomplicate, right? At the end of the day, the outcome is just what is it that you really want? Like what are we trying to achieve? I'll use an example. Right now, Adrian and I are we're in a negotiation, right? And a lot of times when we hear negotiation, we think, oh, it's about money. It's about money. When most negotiations don't even have nothing to do with money. You're think about it. You're always negotiating, whether it's with your children. I'm always negotiating with my kids, with your spouse, with your friends, with your family, with your coworkers, with with vendors that you're using. Like you always negotiating something. So we're in a negotiation right now, and the outcome is we want to get the seller to make a decision. That's the negotiation. We want to get them to make a decision. Make a decision that they're going to move forward. That's what we want. That's what we're negotiating. So it ain't about money. It ain't about any material good. It's a decision. We're trying to negotiate a decision. That's what we're trying to do. So that's the outcome. So as we plan and we determine the outcome, it's really key that you're clear on what the outcome is, because that's the thing that'll help keep you focused. Because as many of you probably are already experiencing, sometimes you could be trying to get a particular outcome or a result, and you're going back and forth with the I will call it the adversary at this point, the person that's on the other side of the table. And then you just find yourself talking, going around in circles and not making any traction on anything, and asking yourself, how do we get here? Well, knowing what your outcome is the thing that helps you get back on track. So that's why it's important that you determine what that is up front. So when you get in the weeds, when you get in the midst of it all, you'll have that light from the lighthouse to pull you back on track, so you can help influence in, the direction of where the negotiation needs to go, right? And that's why they put them together, negotiating and influencing, because influence is a big thing as well. One of the statements that I say, you guys are going to hear me say this a lot. When it comes to what we do as real estate professionals, especially in a real estate transaction, we control the controllables, right? There are certain things that we control, and even in negotiation, there are certain things that we control. So we're going to control the controllables, and we're going to manage the variables. We're going to control the controllables, and we're going to manage the variables. Well, how do you manage variables? Influence, right? There are certain things you cannot make people do. We cannot make the seller make a decision or choose. We can't make the seller choose to move forward in the deal. We can't make them do that, but we can influence it, right? So that's how you manage the variables and you control the controllables. So determining the outcome is key. All right. Part 2 of planning negotiation. You want to develop as many options as possible to achieve that outcome, right? I spent a lot of time on number 1 because without number 1, nothing else works, right? If you're not clear on what it is you're trying to achieve, nothing else works. So you got to be clear on what it is. Where are we going with this? All right, then you want to develop as many options as possible to achieve the outcome, right? You want to avoid fixed positions. So what that means is you want to avoid saying this is the only option. You want to avoid that. There's always more than one option. Matter of fact, Tony Robbins says, without having 3 options, he says, if there's only one option, then there is no choice. If there's only 2 options, then you have a dilemma, which is where most of us end up. Should I do it or should I not do it? Right? And then we get all frustrated, right? We can't make a decision. We get stagnant because it's one or the other. That's the worst place that you could be in, is only having 2 choices, right? He calls that a dilemma, right? And then when you have 3 options, that's when you truly have choice, right? So in any circumstance, even if you feel like it's either this or that, there's always a 3rd option. You want to find the 3rd option. In any negotiation, you want to find the 3rd option. You want to pull yourself out of, we can either do this that doesn't work for us, or we can do that doesn't work for them. Where's the 3rd option that can work for everybody? We have to create it. We have to come up with it together. And that's why it's important when it comes to negotiation. Although I use the word adversary, let's change that word to collaborator. Because in a true negotiation, both parties really should collaborate to create the outcome that works for both sides, that win-win. Like you've heard that before, win-win, right? There are many people, especially in our industry, those that are not members of Brooks and Davis real estate firm, they're not in our ecosystem being coached by Coach Mike, that are going to approach a negotiation with you with a win-lose mentality. They want to win and you better lose. And that's the only way that the negotiation will be successful in their eyes, is if they win and you lose. And they determine what winning looks like and losing looks like. You have no control of it. You're going to be in negotiations with people that approach it that way. But that ain't how we approach it. And guess what? When you get into a negotiation with that person, I promise you, through being skilled and the way that I'm gonna get you guys skilled, you'll be able to influence them into, without them even knowing it, influence them into a more collaborative relationship with you. So y'all can create the outcome which is best for everybody. So you want to develop as many options as possible, at least 3 options. Okay, the 3rd part, when we're planning negotiation. And look, if y'all have questions about anything that I'm saying, let's jump in and let's get them dealt with. We don't have to wait. Either that or you can put them in the chat. But just know that we don't have to wait. And also, if you came on later and you don't see the link to the training manual, I'm posting it in there again, because I know sometimes, depending on when you jump on, you can see the stuff in the chat. There's a link to the training manual to this is what I'm going off of. If you have access to print it, because there's a little notes page, you can take notes. Okay, so the third part of planning negotiation is you want to identify potential areas of agreement. What that does is that gives you the flexibility to be able to close when you see or hear an acceptable option. What that means is going into the negotiation, you want to, there may be some items that you already know that everybody agrees on. There may be some items already. Well, you want to jot those down because you may want to pull those in when there is an impasse or we can't maybe resolve something. Pull those areas of agreement into it to help create a pattern with your collaborator, right? To help create a pattern of agreement. Because see, again, we're talking about influence. You want to influence them. You want them to become comfortable with agreement, not disagreement, right? You want to get them comfortable with agreement. And you got to be careful because sometimes we get pulled in because we react off of what the counterpart does. We react and we get defensive. We begin to defend, or we begin to articulate things that are not healthy to the negotiation because we didn't got caught in our feelings. And what that does is that begins to create patterns of disagreement. So you got to be careful. You always want to say, you know what, I want them to understand that through this negotiation, that it's a culture of agreement, it's a culture of collaboration. If there's something that we don't agree, then we can work together to come to an agreement. That's what we're pushing in negotiation. You want to take the lead in creating that kind of environment as a skilled negotiator, right? So you want to identify the potential areas of agreement going into it. All right, number 4, you want to identify issues to be resolved and plan on how to discuss them. So Chris Voss, if you haven't read his book, Never Split the Difference. It's a great book. That book right there was one of the first books that got me to really fall in love with the skill of negotiation. Because everybody out here talking about how good of a negotiator they are. You know, HAR or NAR, they have these classes. You can get the negotiation certification. And I've taken those classes. But when I read the book, Never Split the Difference, and now that I've gotten certified with NLP, as I read the book again, because I'm going through a second round with Chris Voss and a masterclass that he's doing. So it's a refresher on some of the techniques that he talked about in his book. I'm now seeing what he's done is that he's taking the NLP concepts and he's merged them with negotiation. And he's put his own spin on it. So now it makes even more sense to me why he was so effective as a negotiator, negotiating high-level situations. And when I say high level, we're talking about, we're talking about working with buyers or working with sellers that may be a little indignant, working with other agents that may be a little, that may throw us roadblocks and obstacles. But this man was a counter-terrorist negotiator, negotiating people being kidnapped and having to negotiate the safe return of these people without them dying. Them high leverage, having to negotiate somebody that's just robbed a bank, negotiate them to come out of the building while the SWAT team is chomping at the bit to go in there and just take out everybody. See, them are true high leverage situations, right? Negotiating ransoms from kidnappers. Well, now I get it through the techniques and things that he's using. So the reason I brought that up is because number 4, where it says identify issues to be resolved and plan how to discuss them, Chris calls that a accusation audit. is the term that he uses. And the way he frames it is that you want to sit down and you want to think of everything that your counterpart could find as a problem for you, and any presuppositions or assumptions that your counterpart can make about you, right? You know, pull in this negotiation that Adrian and I are taking part in right now. This person, you know, they've gotten heated, you know, because they don't like, I guess, certain aspects of how things are happening. You know, they start name calling, right? They start offering their opinion of who we were as people, right? Now, they don't know us. You don't know us. You ain't never met us. You ain't met us past this transaction, but you're throwing out terms because of how you're processing what we're doing. And I can tell you, and Adrian can contest to this, the biggest issue right now in this situation is miscommunication. The problem is that the counterpart is not willing to take advantage of better communication opportunities so they can get clear and get more clarity. So miscommunication is the issue right now. It's creating the impasse. And even with all my skill to try to draw this person into a better circumstance to where they can get cleared on their confusion, that's where the challenge is right now. Again, managing variables, because I can't control it. Managing variables. And we're going to do our best to manage it, right? But an accusation audit. So you want to list all of the issues that the counterpart may have. Because you know, like if you're finna go in there and you're going to negotiate a $7,000 contribution from the seller, you know what they're going to say? This buyer, they ain't serious. This deal is never going to close. They can't afford to close the transaction if they need my money. This will end up being a waste of our time. We'll take the house off the market, and this will end up being a waste of our time, right? So all of us can put on the other person's shoes and come up with a list of how we will respond if we were in their shoes. So all we're saying is go ahead and do that up front, and then come up with a plan on when or if they arise. You're already prepared with your rebuttal and your objection. Because, like I said, he calls it an accusation audit. So that's number 4. And then number 5, you want to determine your best alternative to an agreement. All right. So if an agreement can be made, what's the next step? Or where do we go? Where do we go if we ultimately cannot agree on what we're going to do? If agreement can't come together, already know where our next step is going to be, right? What we're going to do. If the seller is not willing to extend the contract, well, what happens next? You know, okay, make sure that the buyer is able to get their earnest money back and already have an idea of what other properties, what other areas that we're going to take a look at, right? If we can't come to an agreement from that vein. But most of the time, especially if you do number 2 and you develop as many options as possible that can take you to your outcome, right? And if you're working and you're creating that environment of collaboration with your counterpart, most of the time, we can get to an agreement that works for everybody, most of the time. Most agreements are not made, not because the opportunity to come to agreement did not exist. It's because the people involved were not skilled at negotiation, or they were viewing it the wrong way. They had a misconception of what negotiation is. Negotiation is not about winning. Negotiation is about getting to an outcome. That's what it is about. All right. Okay, so those are your notes. So hopefully you guys are taking notes so y'all can be better negotiators. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about the negotiation process. So now you plan, you got your list, you've taken notes. So now let's talk about what that process, a good way for that process to look. All right. Okay, hold on one second, guys. All right. All right. Any questions? No questions? Everybody good? Everybody still with me? Y'all still with me?
We here.
Look, I just hear you. Where everybody else at? Are y'all still with me?
Where y'all at?
We here, we with you.
Y'all with
Yep,
me?
we're with you.
Y'all with me? All right, good. Now, does everybody have a link? Some of the other people that came, like Reggie, Majestic Manifestation, do y'all have a link to the training? What I'm going through, I sent a link. I put a link in the chat earlier.
I got it. The Google Drive, I got it.
Perfect. All right, good. All right, let's jump into the process. All right, so let's start with the opening. When opening the negotiation, the first thing you want to do is you want to establish rapport. All right. Most people, and as realtors, this is a big deal, but we do not give it the value that it deserves. Rapport is extremely critical to you being able to achieve the outcomes that you want to achieve when it comes to this business. Whether that's a buyer, you being on the phone with a buyer and them agreeing to meet with you face to face, whether that's you out and about and you run into somebody and getting them to agree to give you their contact information to follow up with them, or getting them to agree to answer the phone when you call, right? Let alone them meet with you in person and or sign your paperwork to hire you. That's just on the buyer side, right? Those are 4 conscious choices that a person has to make even before they're your client, that you have to influence or persuade to get the outcome that you want, right? And that's just on the buyer side. And they don't even pay you. The buyer don't even pay you, and you got to do all of that. Imagine what you got to do on the seller side. And that's why most agents, they organically gravitate to the buyer side, because it's difficult to get the buyer to agree, or let alone get the seller to agree to pay you 6%. Well, at the end of the day, it's really just a rapport issue. Once you get good at establishing rapport with people, it don't matter what you about to ask them. Because the thing about rapport is, it's a person has now gotten so comfortable with you that they feel like they know you, right? And when a person feels like they know you, when they feel like there's a connection with you, then that energy connection, you can ask anything. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to get it, but you'll feel comfortable asking anything. And they'll feel comfortable responding or reacting to anything. It's that feeling of like when you're around your best friend or when you're around your boo, right? When you're in a good place with somebody that you know they care about you and they know you care about them, right? That's what rapport is. When you're with somebody and they know that you got their best interests at heart, and you know they got your best interests, like that's rapport, right? And guess what? It's something that you can create, right? And this is where the lines get blurred a little bit, because people will say, "Oh, you being manipulative." Not being manipulative, right? Because the difference between being manipulative and what I'm talking about is we're not creating the environment or creating the rapport because we want to use it against the person that we're building rapport with. We're not using it and creating it to where we can take advantage of the person, right? We're using it, number one, because we know it works and that it's going to help us achieve the outcome that we've already determined is in the best for both parties. We've already determined that, right? Yes, Kim said genuine. Yes, it's easy. It's easy to build rapport when you're genuine and you're sincere. When you sincerely want what's best for that other person, it's easy, but it also works, and it creates the kind of environment that you want to open your negotiation with. So when you're meeting and you're first engaging with your counterpart, you want to establish rapport. You want to establish a sense of, I want to make sure that we come up with something that works for you as well as that works for us. We're not coming into this thing just trying to create something that works for us to where we win and you lose, right? If anybody loses, there are no winners when it comes to negotiation. And we want our counterpart to understand that, right? I made a comment today to Adrian as we were talking about our situation. And I said, Adrian, I'm just trying to offer her the gift of understanding. I'm just trying to offer her the gift of clearing up her confusion. Like, that's all I want to do, right? That's what I mean by approaching it and establishing rapport. When you're dealing with people, you want what's best, right? We want an outcome to where it's mutually inclusive. It's a win-win. That's how we're going into it. So that's rapport, okay? And again, rapport works well. Y'all all need to learn rapport and get better at rapport, because that's how you're going to get more people to hire you as buyers. That's how you're going to pick up more listings. That's how you're going to get more referrals from people. That's how you're going to get more repeat business when you become highly skilled in not only establishing rapport, but being able to establish it very quickly, right? It doesn't take much to be able to establish it. Now, some people are naturally good at it, right? But most of us are not. So it's something you should be intentional about educating yourself on and getting more skilled on it. And guess what? As long as you're a part of Brooks & Davis Real Estate Firm, trust me, it's something that Coach Mike gonna teach. Okay. All right. The next thing when opening, you want to get a consensus that there is a basis for negotiation. All right. Now, what that means is that there's things that are objections, and then there are things that are conditions, right? There may be some conditions that exist that don't even allow for a basis for us even to be able to negotiate, right? It may be that all the parties to the decision are not available, right? So if it's a husband and a wife and they're buying the house, well, I can't just negotiate with the wife. If I know going in, it's going to require the husband's decision. His decision is a part of it. Then there is no basis for negotiation. There is no need to even begin until the situation is in such a way to where we can get feedback from it. So we got to make sure that there's a consensus, that before we even start, that the playing field is laid out in such a way to where it even allows for us to achieve the outcome that we've set for. The third one, qualify the other negotiator through the as-if principle, right? And then establish the other negotiator's outcome through the as-if principle. So the as-if principle is saying, if we do this, will you do this, right? So, for instance, in Adrian's situation, one of the things that we're asking is, we want to extend, we want to move forward. If we say, for instance, if we can get you comfortable with the fact that it's not a matter of if it's going to close, it's just a matter of when it's going to close. If we can get you comfortable with that, will you sign the amendment? Right? And then that right there, or that terminology, will help you qualify the other negotiator and establish their outcome on what's valuable to them. Through a long dialogue that I've had with the counterpart that Adrian and I are dealing with, I was able to use these, the as-if principle to qualify and quantify the level of skill as it relates to what their outcome was, if they're going to be if they're going to be a counterpart to where we could effectively work together. I was able to do that. So in the beginning and when you're opening negotiation is where you're going to establish, in essence, who you're going up against. Who else is in the room? We're going to do that at the beginning, do that. All right, so then the second part of the negotiation process is the exchange, right? So this is where the dance comes in. This is where the back and forth. This is where the communication, the communication as we know it comes in, meaning the back and forth between you and the counterpart. Because the communication started when you began to plan it out. The communication started right here. Because right here is where you started being intentional and aware of the variables, the distractions, the areas of concern. So that began the communication piece, because by having it written down and already experienced it, you've now put yourself in a position to where you can be a more active listener, right? The biggest voice in most of our heads is our unconscious mind, meaning when somebody says something to us, we're not listening to what they're saying. We're listening to what our mind is saying to us, that little self-talk, right? We're taking all these other considerations into play, which is stopping us from listening. And that's why we miss a lot of things. So the communication starts there, and then it continues in the opening. Right? When you're building rapport and all these things that we talked about here, that's part of the communication as well. But the exchange is the more that we're familiar with as it relates to what we see on TV and in movies. Right? I looked at a movie yesterday. What was the name of that movie? Beirut. That was the name of the movie. And again, it's talking about negotiation, high stakes negotiation. And there's a scene in the movie where he goes up to, they're negotiating the release of this terrorist so they can take, because he's the brother of another terrorist, so they get them back connected because the other terrorist had kidnapped an American, right? And the other terrorist is like, look, unless you get me my brother back, we're not letting him go, we're gonna kill him. And it was imperative that they got the American back because he was a spy and he had all this information. So the country was like, no, we got to save this guy. So there's a scene in the movie where my man is face to face with the terrorist that has the brother of the terrorist, or the country that has the brother of the terrorist. And they're negotiating millions of dollars, right? So my man starts with 2 million, right? The other guy was like, nah, in so many words, no, it's not even open for communication. So then my man was like, well, what does it take? 5 million. So then they go into this exchange. All right, 5 million, no 2 million, no 2.5 million, no 4.5 million, no 3.5. Okay, what if I do 4.9 million and then you keep half a million and then I won't tell nobody, right? They just do this back and forth, this rapid fire exchange. That's what we're familiar with in negotiation. Guess what? That don't work in negotiation. That's not how you negotiate, right? The last thing you want to do is present a counter proposal. And you'll see this in the way that we approach it, right? You want to force people to begin to negotiate with themselves, right? You want them to offer you, in essence, what should have done, even though it was high stakes, it was, okay, well, and he started off well, 2 million. All right, what would it take? 5 million. Okay, we can't do 5 million. We don't even have enough. We don't even have enough for that, right? This is all we have. You got to take this. Like, that's the dialogue that he should have went into to try to force him to begin to negotiate with himself by coming up with a number. Okay, if you ain't got the 5 million, all right, we'll take 3 million. All right, we ain't got the 3 million. Like, you want to force them to come down. So it's not the back and forth rapid fire that we're more familiar with. Offering counterproposal about that's, I think Chris describes it in the book. That's the kind of stuff that you do if you go to a flea market or a bazaar. Right? If y'all have been to a flea market, maybe you went and got your gold chain at the flea market, and they already tell you you're going to negotiate, and then you do that back and forth with my man behind the glass. That ain't negotiating. That's not the best way to negotiate. Okay. All right, so the exchange. So you want to state areas of agreement up front. Okay. Look, especially with real estate, it's easy. We all want the same thing. The buyer wants to buy the house. The seller wants to sell the house, right? The listing agent wants the seller to sell the house because that's how he gets paid. The buyer's agent wants the buyer to buy the house because that's how he gets paid. The title company, the mortgage company, we all want to get to the closing table. We all want that. So in real estate, it's easy. Agreement is we want to get this closed because it is in the best interest of everybody for us to get this closed. It's not in the best interest for the buyer to have to start over. It's not in the best interest for the seller to have to start over and put the house back on the market. The best interest is always going to be us closing. So for real estate, for us, it's easy. Agreement, keep everybody focused on that. So we want to establish that up front. This is what we're getting. This is the goal. We're moving towards the closing table. All right. Then the second part, it says anchor every and any state you can utilize later. All right. So now anchoring is a more advanced technique in NLP. So don't worry about that one for right now because you haven't learned it. You don't know what anchoring even means. But what we can take away from that is state is very important when you're collaborating, when you have a counterpart. Their state, meaning their mental state, their emotional state, their physical state is important when working to influence or persuade somebody. So when you recognize that your counterpart is not in a good emotional state, or they're not in a good mental state, they're frustrated, right? We use techniques called labeling, meaning it seems like you're frustrated, right? It sounds like you're disappointed, you're disgusted, right? Those negative emotions won't work in a true collaboration. So once you identify them, you have to label them, meaning you call them out. Seems like you're angry. Seems like you're frustrated. Seems like you don't trust what we're saying. Seems like you don't believe us, right? We got to call them out. So take that into consideration. If they're tired, you know what? It seems like you're tired right now. When would be a better time for me to call you back after you've gotten some rest? Oh, or your mental state, it seems like you're not focused. You have a number of things that are going on around you. I don't want to add to the confusion. When's a better time for us to revisit, right? When you're in a better place. So the state that they're in is key. And you being able to observe that. And once you observe it, then you want to influence it to put them in the best state possible, because that's going to help you be able to better achieve the outcomes that you want to achieve, that you set forth in the beginning. All right. Again, state issues to be resolved. Right. Again, there is no right or wrong. There's we want this, y'all want this. Let's figure out the best way for us to get to an agreement. It's all about resolution. None of it is a personal attack. If we don't want what you want, that doesn't mean that we're bad or you're bad, that you're wrong or we're wrong, or you're right or we're right. It's not that. It's not about right or wrong. See, right or wrong and good and bad is what muddies the negotiation, because people take it as a personal offense if you're not agreeing to give them what they want. They take it as a personal offense. And then in real estate, a lot of times the realtors take it as a personal offense, and it ain't even got nothing to do with them. It ain't your money. It ain't your house. But because the buyer's not agreeing to sell it for $10,000 more than the appraised value, you take it as a personal offense. Or because the buyer's asking for a renegotiation of repairs that have come up because of the inspection report, you take it as a personal offense, right? It's the feelings. Get them feelings out of there. All we care about are the facts. And then let's resolve the facts and the issues. Your opinions don't matter. Opinions never get you to an outcome in a negotiation. If anything, the opinions is what kills the negotiation. The opinions, the feelings, the emotions, we should only be dealing with the facts, okay? And as a skilled negotiator, your job is to help navigate your counterpart, all counterparts, all collaborators, and sometimes even your own client, to help navigate everybody back to the facts. So the opinions and the emotions and the other things that are muddying the negotiation, we move them out the way so we can get to the outcome. It's your responsibility as a skilled negotiator to do that. All right, number 4, probe for others' outcomes in areas of disagreement. All right, any ulterior motives, right? What that's saying is if you can't get to an agreement, try to flesh out, there must be something else going on here, right? Because it seems as if this is an easy alignment, an easy agreement, but for whatever reason, they won't agree to it. So maybe there's something behind the scenes that we haven't fleshed out just yet that is motivating them to not agree with the outcome or the outcomes that we presented, right? So we're not giving up. We haven't given up. We haven't stopped. We're just now becoming curious. Maybe there's something else that we haven't quite fleshed out just yet. Let's start fishing some more. Let's see if we can come up with some ulterior motives, some other issues that we have not brought to the table that needs to be resolved. And guess what? That sometimes takes time. Let me tell you, the one thing that I have not said, and as you all continue I encourage you to continue on your journey of getting more skilled with negotiation. As you continue on that journey, one of the things that you'll realize is that speed is one of the worst things when it comes to you being able to achieve outcomes, the kind of outcomes that you want with a negotiation. If you're trying to do this, if you're trying to come to an outcome fast, if the counterpart is trying to get you to come to an outcome quickly, they placed a deadline and it's got to be done by this time or else, you're not in the best environment to achieve the outcome that works for everybody. The best negotiations is that slow negotiation. And I know y'all hate it because everybody gets antsy and gets in their feelings and just want it done, want to get it over with, right? But the best circumstance is when you're taking your time and you're moving slow through it. So you don't get caught up on somebody pressing for it's got to be done by this day. If it's not done by this day, we're doing this. Okay. If it doesn't get done by that day and you end up having to do what you're going to do, you got to do it. But until we get there, this is where we are. We're still stating issues that need to be resolved. We're still probing for other outcomes. We're still fleshing out, asking questions, being conscious and being aware, paying attention, listening. We're still doing all of that while we're in this exchange. So it's not something that happens quickly and you don't want it to. You don't want it to happen fast. I mean, matter of fact, you want to pre-frame. That's another NLP term. You want to pre-frame your counterpart from the beginning. Hey, this may take time. Hey, we're not in this thing for the short term. We're in it for the long haul. until we figure this out. We're willing to take however long it takes to do it. Like you may want to pre-frame your counterpart so you manage their expectations. So they don't even try to come at you with the, it's got to be done here at this time, at this moment, or else. But guess what? You're gonna run across some collaborators, some counterparts. Notice I'm not saying adversaries, but you're gonna run across some people on the other side of the table, and they're gonna call you everything except a child of God because you're taking too long. They ain't gonna do it. It's gonna happen. But again, focus on the outcome. Make sure it's an outcome that's in everybody's best interest. The ecology of it all, that's another NLP term, meaning that you're taking what you're trying to do and it's the best thing for you, it's the best thing for the people that are around you and love you, it's the best thing for the world. So ecology is just about whatever you do, it's in the best interest of everybody, right? Well, since we know that the outcome is in the best interest for everybody, we can be a champion of achieving that outcome and defending it. So that's that part. All right, number 5, develop options that include both parties' outcomes. Go for the win-win, right? So I said that earlier. We're going for the win-win, not the win-lose. If somebody loses, nobody wins. We're going for the win-win. We want what's best for the other party as well. We want a win-win, right? So it says here, develop options that include, and that's why I spoke earlier, why it requires a collaboration. It takes both people to create the win-win. It takes both of us. That's why it's been such a challenge with me and Adrian, is because the agent is not collaborating with us. They are not agreeing to the collaboration. It's not about us getting them to agree to our terms and our outcome. We're asking that they agree to the collaboration, to the communication, and they won't agree to that. They won't get involved in it. They won't collaborate with us. And that's what's making this situation so much more challenging than it needs to be. But if you are, and I promise you, being a skilled negotiator, you can influence the atmosphere and the environment. You can create that. And you can get people to come alongside of you and y'all achieve big things together. Y'all achieve these win-win outcomes for everybody. This is not, look, real estate, they don't call it like the buyer's agent. They don't call the buyer's agent the adversary agent or the opposing agent. We call them the cooperating agent, right? You got the listing agent and you got the cooperating agent. So even in real estate, we call it that. We're supposed to be cooperating to get the buyer and the seller finalized. So even our industry acknowledges that we should be collaborating and cooperating when we're doing this. This is not a battle. This is not me against you, buyer's agent, listing agent. It's not that. This is us. And we're going to get this deal done together. That's what it should be. And that's how you need to approach it. All right. So remind the other party of all shared interests. Again, closing table. It's best for everybody. Ask for help in developing options, collaboration, right? Pull them in. All right, if this isn't working, how can we create something that works for everybody? Because that doesn't work for you, this doesn't work for us. Let's create something that works for everybody. Ask for their preference among several options, right? Remember, we've come up with options already. You pre-thought through this thing, you pre-planned it, right? So you put down some options, right? Well, present the options. Read their feedback. See what kind of responses that you get from them to dictate what next step we're going to make, right? Come to the table with some things, right? The one thing that you want them to feel comfortable in, and that's why that rapport is so important, you want them to feel comfortable in the fact that we're willing to do whatever it takes and we're willing to stay in this thing however long we need to stay into it until we come up with a win-win for everybody. You want them to believe it and feel that, right? And as long as they believe and feel that, then that'll help alleviate these opinions and these emotions that get caught up. That'll help deal with that from the other side. Remember, managing the variables. We're going to manage the variables. Control what we control, and you can't control nobody's emotions. You can't control how a person's opinion of something or how they feel about something. You can't control that. You can't control how they react or respond. You can't control any of that. Now, you can definitely control how you feel. You can control how you respond. You can control how you react. Right? You can't control how they do it, though. Right? But you can manage it. You can influence it. Right? You can do all of that once you become a skilled negotiator. Skilled negotiator, do all that. All right, so ask for their preference among several options. Emphasize objective standards for selecting an option. So what does that mean? Create criteria and say, okay, we need to come up with an option. Instead of us coming up with the option, let's come up with how we would define an option that works for both parties. Okay, you know, it has to be this option has to be an option that obviously both the buyer and the seller agree to. This option has to be an option that maybe is executed on prior to a certain date. Whatever option we come up with has to be, it can't be financial or in monetary. It has to be in some other manner, some other concession. Like you can collaborate on now, not necessarily the option, but collaborate on the parameters or the criteria that defines what an acceptable option would be. So that's another way to approach it. All right. All right. And then the final thing in exchange is you want to get agreement on the best option and move to close. So get the agreement, move to close. All right. And then under closing, so we've gone through opening, we've gone through the exchange, and now it moves to close. And closing is simple. We summarize the agreement and action plan and emphasize on what the next step is. So what does that mean? All right, so we've had this exchange, we've gone back and forth, we're fleshing out, you know, we're doing all this heavy lifting, you know, looking for developing options, looking for shared outcomes, identifying disagreements, trying to figure out ulterior motives, stating issues, you know, reminding them of areas of agreement up front. So we've done all of this, and guess what? Now we've come to an agreement. All right, this is what we're going to do. So you want to summarize it. Remember, I spoke earlier about communication and how most miscommunication or misunderstanding is the person that's delivering the information. There's some filters that it's coming out of. There's a meaning that they want to convey. So they say it. It flows through some filters. It comes out a certain way. Then the other person receives it, but they receives it through a different set of filters. And then now it creates a meaning, which is in most instances different than the one that was meant to be conveyed. Well, the only way that you know if a person misunderstood you is on how they respond. That's the only way that you know if a person did not understand what you were saying. There's no other way for you to know if a person is understanding what you're saying other than once they respond to you, right? The problem with a lot of people is that we react off the response, right? They respond in a way that, and now we responding off of their response versus taking a step back and saying, you know what? That right there is just validation that they didn't understand or they didn't quite get the meaning that I'm trying to convey. They're misunderstanding me. So I need to frame it a different way. Or we need to continue our communication and our dialogue until you get them to where your meaning and their meaning lines up. Then they get it. Now we've communicated. Now it's been effective because we're on the same page. All right. Well, that's all the closing is all about. You're just verifying that everybody's on the same page. You summarize the agreement, and what comes with the agreement is how we're going to execute it out. Here's the plan. Here's the action plan. Right? These are the next steps that we're going to do as we execute out this agreement. Right? Okay, so the seller has agreed to move forward. This is what we're going to do next. We have an amendment. We're going to draw the amendment up. We're going to get them to sign it. We're going to get that to the underwriter. The underwriter is going to get it. The underwriter is going to get it to that department. We'll get the clear to close, you know, times, and we'll close on Wednesday, something like that.
Right.
Go ahead, Adrian.
Right. Yes. Those are very rare on my end, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But we're gonna keep working on it. Go ahead and pause, Adrian. You got a lot of noise in the background.
People come out of the woodwork, and they all have credit scores that are like 5.
Adrian, can you mute yourself?
You know, they're
All right, I'll mute him. All right. But yeah, Reginald says sometimes basic communication is not so basic. Well, all the time. Well, I mean, here's the reality though, Reginald. I don't really think there is a such thing as basic communication, right? We see communication as the words that are coming out. When I think we had our communication training last year, and we found out that words is only 7% of understanding, of meaning. Words is only 70%, 7%. 93% of a person understanding what you're communicating to them is based on tone and physiology, meaning we call those the nonverbals, how you say it and what you look like when you say it, like how you deliver it. That's 93% of what a person is going out of how a person is going to accept what you're communicating to them. So at the end of the day, because of all these filters, right? Because of how things can be distorted, how our unconscious mind sometimes deletes things. Sometimes our unconscious mind will determine that something is irrelevant and it won't even bring it to your attention. That means somebody said something and it's been completely deleted through your unconscious mind and you weren't even aware of it. So that happens. So that's why sometimes people be like, it happens to me all the time. I'll ask a question and people will answer and the answer has no relevancy to the question that I asked. And then I'll go back and ask him, I'll say, you know what, that was a great answer. That wasn't, but it doesn't work for the question that I asked. Do you know what I asked? And then when I ask them, do you know what I asked? They'll begin to tell me the question that they were answering, but then they'll realize that wasn't the question I asked. And then they'll tell me the question that I asked. I promise it happens all the time to me. And it happens just like that. I'll ask a question, they'll answer it based on their response. That ain't the question I asked. What question did I ask? They'll begin to answer me with the question they thought I asked, and then realize that wasn't the question I asked, and then tell me the question I asked, and then they'll answer the question. It's crazy. That's what it is, communication. It's crazy. Okay. So that's what the closing is about. Summarizing the agreement, action plan, emphasizing the next step, right? And being on the same page about this is what the steps are going to look like now moving forward. And one thing that I want to throw in here, and I don't know if Chris Voss said it or not, but you want to do it 3 times. Like you want to get agreement 3 times. It can be done in 3 different ways too. It don't have to be done in the same way, but you want to summarize it. Or when it comes to getting agreement in the exchange, you want to get 3 yeses, 3 different yeses, 3 different ways of them saying yes, that they're on board, that we're going to do this, that we're going to move in that vein. So you really want to say it 3 times, same thing in sales. You know, before you ask the client to sign the paperwork, you want to get 3 levels, 3 yeses, 3 agreements, 3, all of that. Because the last thing that you want is to go with the first yes, and because you want execution. You don't want the yes, you want them to execute on what we agreed. Well, sometimes people will tell you yes just to be done with the conversation, just to be done with the exchange, just to be done with the negotiation. They'll tell you yes. The negotiation isn't over until you get performance. That's when the negotiation is over. It's not over when you get the agreement. It's over when you get performance, right? So,
the results.
Yeah, the result. The negotiation is not over until you get the outcome. That's when the negotiation is over, right? So just because you get agreement, you want to get it in 3 different ways. because that right there solidifies. When they say yes 3 times, you got it. You got it. All right, let's move to closing. When they say it 3 times. All right, and let's talk about next steps. All right, so I think, we're gonna finish up. We may not make it to the handling objections part of it, but we'll just go until, we're gonna go till 2. So we're just gonna go. Does anybody have any questions? Is this good stuff? What do y'all think? What do y'all think so far? Am I talking over y'all head? Come on, y'all, give me some feedback. Unmute yourselves and talk to me. Oh, look at Stubblefield dancing. Let's dance. Look at yes, let's dance. All right, great stuff. All right, good. Hey, look, there's gonna be a quiz later, so I hope y'all taking notes. I'm gonna give y'all a test on what we talked about. Y'all taking notes? What I did on my screen. I didn't press the annotate button. All right. Plenty of notes. All right, perfect. All right, so let's talk about some negotiation tactics. Why does it keep doing that? Is somebody else writing on my screen? Y'all better stop it. Okay, save. Why am I, what? Okay, I don't know what I'm doing. All right, let's talk about some negotiation tactics. Okay, I mentioned this one earlier, right? When I gave the story of the movie, the scene in the movie, where they went back and forth. It says, do not respond to a proposal with a counter proposal. All right, counter proposals weaken your position. And what do you mean? What do you mean by that? If we go to the seller and say, all right, you asking 260, we're offering 250. Say you representing the seller. All right, you listed for 260, the buyer comes in at 250. Well, a counter proposal would be you go in at 255. And most buyer's agents, they're expecting, oh, well, just give me a price, give me a counter proposal, give me this, give me that. They want that, they're gonna pull it, they're gonna try to pull it from you. But fight the feeling, because you're gonna want to give it to them. And you know why? Because there's that little voice that's saying it's taking too long. Just give them what they want. Just give them a counter proposal. Just give them an answer. Give them a response. Just tell them. Give them the bottom line. You're gonna hear all of that. Fight the feeling. Counter proposals weaken your position. What you want to do is you want to restate your position, validate it, clarify it, and probe for options. So what does that mean? All right, we're asking 260. All right, we're offering 250. What's your reason for not paying 260? Like, that's a way to respond. Get curious. We've done comparables. Before I even put the house on the market, we've done comparables, and the comparables validated that we priced good at 260. So what's your reason for the buyer not paying 260? Is it that their pre-approval is not enough for 260,000? And then you wait for them to respond. And then like Kim said earlier, then let's dance. That's where the dance begins. Because what you want to do is that you want them to come back, right? We're at 260. So we restated 260. We ask the questions of why the buyer can't this or that, or we're probing, we're asking questions, we're clarifying, we're validating why we're at 260. We're doing all of that. What are some other options that we can look into to where your buyer would be able to pay 260, right? Do all of that. So then they make, okay, we'll pay 255. Final offer, we'll pay 255. Okay, we can appreciate that. Again, we're at 260 and we verified it. Like, what's the reason for us to sell it to you for $5,000 less than what you're asking? Again, we talking. Let's talk through it. All right, that's what we mean by not responding to a proposal with a counter proposal. that's the strategy we're talking about. Get them to either come up to where you already are, or get them to respond to their own proposal. That's what you want to do. Okay. All right. Invent options for mutual gain. Win-win dovetailed options. So again, that was that create options where these options benefit both parties. Another term for that is dovetailed outcomes. All right. Number 3, avoid attack defense exchanges. Says use negotiation Aikido. So treat their proposal as an option, probe for outcomes behind it. So this is what he means. You're at 260. They submit you an offer. I'll even say 230. They submit you an offer for 230 and you get mad and you tell the seller, they submitted this lowball offer of 230. We're not even going to respond. Now, you got a prospective buyer on the table and you ain't even going to respond. Not only are you not responding, you done took offense, right? That's what we mean by avoid attack defense exchanges. Or even if you do respond, how dare you insult my client by coming in $50,000 under, like, no, who cares? Follow the same strategy. They at 230, all right, we're at 260 or 280. We're pretty confident in our price. You know, what's your reason? What's your reason for wanting to come in 50,000 less? Maybe there's some additional information that we can provide to you to help you understand why we're validated in where we are. Hell, they can come in at 100,000. What's your reason for coming in $250,000 less than what we're asking, right? So you approach it the same, right? So avoid you did this, so I'm not gonna do that. You lowball, so I'm not gonna call you. You like some challenges that we dealing with. I feel like y'all not doing it right, so I'm not gonna answer your phone call. Like this, that's not gonna get us where we need to get. All right. So treat their proposal as one option, probe for the outcome behind it. And so the second part where it says treat it as an option, because remember I said we want multiple options. You can tell them, hey, look, we appreciate your offer. We'll put that to the side. We'll put that as an option. Let's consider some other ones, right? So in essence, you're not validating the offer, but you're allowing them to feel appreciated. You're not ignoring it. That's what it is. People don't like to be ignored, right? They want to be involved. So, all right, you submitted the offer. Perfect. We're not blowing it up. We're not throwing it in the trash. We just putting it to the side for right now. Now let's talk through some other things. It can help them stay focused. Right. All right, treat your proposal the same way. If attacked, probe for the outcome behind the attack. All right. Again, it's no way we're paying $280,000 for that house. That is way overpriced. It's this and that. Whatever they say, who cares? Understand and say, okay, well, look, this is what we'll do. We're at 280. We're just going to put it to the side. We ain't going to throw it away. We're going to put it to the side. Now let's just talk. Let's talk through. Let's collaborate. Let's figure out what outcome that we can come up with that works for everybody, right? And let's be okay if we're not able to come up with an outcome. That's another important one as well. He may say this, and it may say this in here, I don't know. But it's okay to let them know that it's okay if we're not able to come to an agreement. That's another conversation that you can have in the exchange in the beginning, especially after you've built rapport, is letting them know that, hey, we're okay if we can't make something, if we can't come up with a win-win solution, then we are not going to move forward with a win-lose scenario, whether that's us winning and you're losing, or whether that's you're winning and we're losing. We're only doing a win-win outcome or a no deal. And what no deal means is we couldn't come up with a win-win solution, so we're just going to shake hands and look forward to collaborating again. later. Everybody's good. Everybody feel good about it. It just didn't work. That's the only thing we're committed to. We will not, regardless of who's winning and who's losing, participate in a win-lose outcome. You let that person know up front.
Can you, oh, never mind.
Say it again, Reggie.
You just answered the question. I was gonna ask, can you come up front and present and say, you know, I want to have a win-win solution, not a win-lose on either side. So if it's a situation where I win and you lose, then I don't want to go through with that deal. You can come, you answered the question though. So
absolutely. And look, don't say I don't want to go through it. Say I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Offer that level of commitment to them. I'm not
forward
if I win and you lose.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not moving forward. Because see, what it does is it implants in their mind, I'm not doing it if I'm winning. I'm not doing it if you winning either. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The only option is win-win for us. It's either win-win or no deal. We're not doing a deal at all. And yeah, we said it up front. Absolutely. Okay, good. So that's the avoid attack defense exchanges. Anchor any and every state you can use later. So again, we'll skip over that because y'all know about anchoring. All right, avoid irritators. So these are value judgments and statements which glorify the options you favor. Example, I can't believe you'd make such a ridiculous offer. Don't bring none of that. Those are irritators. Because what did I say earlier? You cannot control how somebody responds. You can't control how somebody reacts. And we talked about how important them being in the right state is to us being able to achieve our outcome. So you don't want to irritate them. You don't want to put them in an irritable state, because when people are irritated, it's hard for them to make logical decisions. When you're irritated, you make emotional decisions. And guess what? Emotional decisions typically are bad decisions. We don't want bad decisions. We want a good decision. So we want to make sure that we don't irritate them and that we avoid name calling people unethical, calling people bad or not good at your job. Pretty much name calling. One of the first things we learn in pre-K, in kindergarten, don't call names, right? But yet still, we got grown folks out here calling other people names. Cut it out, right? We definitely want to avoid doing that because that doesn't help at all. Matter of fact, it's a roadblock, gets in the way. All right. Separate intention from behavior. I love this. All right. This is really a big NLP concept. And what it says is that we are not our behaviors. People are not their behaviors. Okay. Just because somebody behaves a certain way, because what we do is we'll see somebody behave a certain way, and then we place an intention on that behavior. We don't ask them or probe them to find out what their intention was. We don't do that. We see what they did, and then we place, oh, they did that because of, we fill in the blank form. We don't ask, all right? When you, and this is a core principle of NLP, when you subscribe to a person's behavior is not their intention, then you handle it differently. And when you see someone behave, it really helps with you with your reactions, right? You see someone behave, then it causes you to become curious. I wonder why they did that. Let's go find out. I wonder why they reacted that way. I wonder why they called me unethical. I wonder why they called me rude. I wonder why they called me out my name. Right? I wonder why they hung the phone up in my face. Let's go find out. Versus, they hung the phone up in my face? Man, I'm about to go Will Smith them. I'm about to do it. Right? That stops you from doing that. Reacting that way. And then having to come back later and apologize. Or killing the deal. 90% of deals get killed, not because it wasn't a good deal, and they couldn't come up with a deal that was win-win. It was because the negotiators they weren't skilled and they killed it, right? They couldn't get past all these things that I'm talking about here. Nobody was skilled enough to guide anybody past all this stuff. But y'all gonna be them. Y'all gonna be the ones that we send out there. Gonna be negotiating the deals that y'all like. All right. So avoid irritators. I'm sorry, separate intention from behavior. All right, label suggestions and questions. Here we go. Let me offer a suggestion. I like to ask a question. I do that a lot. And y'all know that, like those that are coaching with me, y'all know I do that a lot. Let me ask this question. I understand what you're saying, but let me ask you this. Or let me suggest, like avoid telling people what to do or saying what you need to do is, don't tell nobody what they need to do. You don't know what people need to do, okay? Just suggest. I suggest, had you considered doing this? Do that, just bring it to their awareness. Like, don't tell them what they need to do. You need to call a mortgage broker and have don't say that. Had you considered contacting a mortgage broker? Right? How about, let me suggest something. How about you call your seller, schedule a meeting with them and then just propose what we're offering. Can I suggest that you do that? Had you considered doing that? Or you need to call your seller. As an agent, you got to present all offers. So you need to call them and present my offer. Don't do that. It's not gonna work, right? Even if you're right, right? Being right ain't all it's cracked up to be, right? There's a lot of people out here that's right and broke. They right and ain't got no money. They ain't got no success in real estate, but they right. They ain't got no friends. They ain't got no relationships. They not happy, but they right. Hey, you right, bro. You right, right? Hey, man, I'd rather be wrong and happy than right and unhappy. I'd rather be wrong and getting the outcomes that I want than right and not receiving that stuff. So label suggestions and questions. All right, use I language then rather than accusing. Oh, here we go, man. I told y'all about name calling. Don't be name calling people, man. All right. So if you're not understanding somebody, don't say, man, you confusing. you yelling. You this, you that. Don't say that. Say, I'm having trouble understanding this, right? Rather than you're not making yourself clear. That's accusatory. I feel like you yelling at me rather than you yelling at me, right? It seems like you mad, right? People hate when you tell them what emotion they are. You mad, you frustrated. No, it seems like you might be mad, right? Again, you become curious. That curiosity comes in. All right. I always point the finger to you. That helps people up. That helps people accept it easier when the finger's being pointed at you. Maybe it's I'm tripping. I'm not understanding, right? Even though what they saying could be crazy, it could be la. You like, man, these people tripping. You don't say that. You say, maybe I'm tripping. Maybe I didn't hear you right. Maybe I'm not understanding it. I'm misunderstanding something. So let's keep talking about it. Okay. All right. State your reasons first before making a proposal. All right. The reason that we're coming in at 250 versus 280 is because of this, this, and this. All right. All right. Now there is one thing that I would add. Again, and this is Chris Voss's, this is accusation audit. He says, or he calls it he calls it labeling / mislabeling. Prior to offering your reason, you could say, look, you're probably gonna think that we're just trying to steal this property from you. You're probably gonna think that we don't care about your client and whatever circumstance that they have as it relates to how much money that they want to make on the deal. You probably think that, so you want to come up with any labels, negative labels that they may be thinking. And now this is from a perspective of if you're going to submit an offer, a lower offer than what they're asking. So you're probably going to think this, probably going to think that, probably going to think this. All right. Then you go into, well, the reason that we're doing this is, boom. And then you explain what we're doing, we're going to come in like this, and this, which is the proposal. And note how he says on here, not the reverse order. So don't do the proposal. Don't tell them hey, look, our offer is $250 and this is why we doing it. Do it the other way. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is what we about to do. Here's the proposal. Boom. And then I would just add that piece in the beginning. It's kind of like on 8 Mile, right? If y'all seen 8 Mile and Eminem went up there that last rap battle and he just started talking all the negative stuff about him that happened to him, what does it do? It takes away all the ammunition from your counterpart, right? If you'd have said all the negative stuff, now them going back or saying it to the client or whatever, what are you doing? We said it already. We agree. We've already set our first level of agreement. Remember, we want to create this culture of agreement, this atmosphere of agreement. So yeah, you may think that we lowballing. Oh yeah, I do think you lowballing. Hey, guess what? We agreed. Now let's keep going. So that's how you want to do it. All right. We got about 15 more minutes. Yeah, I may be able to get through this. We'll see. All right. Anticipate objections. Yes. Handle them in advance. That's what can be done in pre-planning. What are they going to have a problem with? If we come in 30 grand under ask, they probably may have a problem with that. So let's be ready to handle the objection when they say that ain't going to work. Right? What about it? What is not working? What about it's not going to work? All right. So think of the objections. Right? That's two. We can't. We can get more. We can get more from somebody else. Having them have something prepared to handle that objection, we can get more from somebody. You'll realize in any negotiation, especially in real estate, there's only going to be like 2 or 3 objections. It ain't going to be a whole bunch of them. So take your time, figure out what the 2 or 3 objections are, create responses around them, and be ready for them when they come already. Right? I promise you, the one that's most prepared when going into a negotiation has the greater chance of getting the outcomes that they want. Creating that win-win. So anticipate the objections. Go into it knowing that they're gonna say no. See, most of us, we so scared to do stuff because we're afraid of the no. We're scared to hear no. We scared for people not to give us what we're asking for. So we don't ask. We're afraid to hear them say no. And guess what? A lot of us are not living life to the extent that we could be living it. Not because people are telling us no, it's because we're not asking for what we want. We're not even asking for it. And that's why we're not living and experiencing, being able to participate in it. So get ready. Go into it with the thought that they're not going to agree with you. All right. Behavioral flexibility, right? So, but pretty much behavioral flexibility is pretty much you not reacting to them. You being able to control yourself. You hearing a joke said about your wife and not going up on stage and slapping the guy in the mouth. Like behavioral flexibility is you being able to process that at that moment, take into consideration what all is going on, and then put in place how you're going to respond and how you're going to handle it in an ecological way. So that's behavioral flexibility. Behavioral flexibility is giving people a pass. I'm gonna let you make it. I'm gonna show you some grace. That's behavioral flexibility, okay? All right, minimize the reasons you give when stating an option, okay? So multiple reasons give the other the opportunity to select the weakest and make it the basis for rejecting the option. So here's an example. He says, don't say all of these, just say one. Pick one reason and say it. He says, we must implement flex time because it will increase our hiring options. It will reduce our turnover. Our employees will be happier. We'll look like a progressive company. What we're saying is don't say all of the reasons. We're coming in at we're coming in $30,000 less than ask because no other house appraised for more than $230,000. and we don't think it's going to appraise. The end. It ain't. Well, you know, based on this side of town and with the amount of people that live here and with the quality of house, no. The numbers don't verify your amount. The end. This is why we come in 250,000 under market. All right. Test understanding and summarizing. Again, it goes back to what I said earlier. The only way that you know somebody did not understand what you're saying is by testing it. And the way you test is by asking questions, listening to how they respond, and then testing it. These are some ways that you can test understanding. So you think that, is this a good deal? You think that your client will move forward like that? All right, so your main concern is that you can find a better, higher offer in the market. So your main concern is that your seller is leaving money on the table. Right? All right. Then it seems that we both think the idea is worth a trial period. That's another one. Right? Then it thinks that, I mean, you're not 100% sold, but it's enough to continue to explore. Right? Let me be sure I understand where we are now. I did that one. Look, Adrian, no, I did that one yesterday. So what I'm hearing you say is, just so I'm clear in my understanding, you're going to do this, this, and this. You're going to put yourself in a position where they lose money and it's going to take them longer to close. So just so I'm clear in what I'm understanding you're saying right now, right? That's test, understanding, and summarize. And that's that technique. All right, tell the other your feelings. I'm having trouble with your proposal for more time off. We've agreed that we both want a lower unit cost, and yet I feel that this will only increase, right? So what he's saying is, explain, if you disagree, explain to them why you feel the way you feel about it. Explain it. I get the feeling that we're jumping into and from issue to issue. Which one would you like to discuss first? Use the word feel. I feel like this. Right? Because a lot of times when you say, I feel like something, they don't want you to feel that way. So they'll help you not feel that way no more. And so what do? They'll start communicating, right? That's the one thing that I haven't deployed yet in the situation with me and Adrian, is me telling this young lady how she's making us feel. We feel like you want to kill the deal. We feel like you don't want your client to sell his house, right? We feel like you are intentionally sabotaging. I ain't did that just yet, but I may have to pull it out. So you want to tell others your feelings. All right, don't negotiate with your team in front of the other team, all right? If an option is raised and you need more time or information, ask for a break or schedule another session. Negotiating with your team will show the other team who your weakest link is in the event of a disagreement. All right. So they're saying is, don't be talking to your buyer in front of the seller and the seller's agent. Y'all step out. Guess what? There are going to be times that you're going to have to negotiate at the closing table. There's some things that came up, and until these things are resolved, we ain't closing. And you at the title company with your client and the seller's there with their client, the listing agent, and you're going to have to negotiate to get to the outcome. It's going to happen, people. Trust me. It's done happen. Well, in that instance, you don't do it in front of them. If you're going to have a conversation with your client, step out. The good old days. No, they still do it. They still happening, Kim. You want to step out, step away, have a conversation, come to an agreement, keep it between you and the other agent. Remove the other party. Discuss it somewhere else. All right. And then the last one is, if you get stuck, stop. If you're not moving, if you're not making progress in the negotiation, if you're not getting closer to the outcome, then stop what you're doing. All right? Stop. Just stop. Stop. Shut it down. Stop. Remember, in a negotiation, we ain't rushing. We ain't in no rush. We ain't in no rush. We're not getting caught up with deadlines. People get real scared with deadlines. When you're approaching a deadline, everybody start freaking out. Deadlines aren't real, okay? They're not real. They're not real. What happens? The deadline get here and we don't meet the deadline, what's gonna happen? The world gonna end? We're gonna stop breathing? What? The sun gonna fall? What's gonna happen if we miss the deadline? What consequences gonna happen? Because at the end of the day, just like we set that date, we agreed that date, we can change our minds. Deadlines can be changed because all it is a choice. You can choose, we can choose for the deadline to be further along, right? So don't get caught up on deadlines, right? As they approach and get scary. Oh my God, deadline. People, but guess what? Skilled negotiators know how to use deadlines. They know how to use deadlines to influence their counterpart, influence negotiators. So don't you get caught up in it, right? Somebody using it on you. The best way to not get caught up with the deadline is to ask yourself. You ain't even got to ask nobody. Ask yourself, what happens if we don't close on the 31st? What really happens? Oh, your client can lose their, the client ain't gonna lose the earnings money because you can put parameters in place. Even if that's the case, the client will lose the earnings money. All right, well, that means you need to put some parameters in place to where that don't happen, right? Or that means we just got to go find another house. Okay, you just got to go find another house. Or we got to we're going to put the house back on the market. Okay, or we can extend the deadline. Oh, what is that an option? That's an option that we can put more time on the table. That we can spend more time fleshing this thing out. Oh, that's an option. Oh, wow. Okay. There's no need to be scared of deadlines. Okay. All right. Generate at least 3 options for doing something else. All right. If you get stuck, we got to come with some new options. These options ain't working. Let's come with some new ones. And then choose the best and go with it. So that's if you get stuck. All right. So handling objections, I'm going to have to leave that for y'all to go through. But everybody has the manual. Y'all have the link. We got 6 minutes, and I want to get some feedback. Give me some feedback about the session today. And then I'm gonna incentivize you. The person that gives me the best feedback, I'm gonna give them $5. $5 just for giving me some feedback. Who want this $5? Now I know y'all ain't gonna leave this money on the table. Come on. The best feedback. Who gonna give it to me? And you gotta unmute yourself and you gotta talk to me. Y'all gonna have me keep this money? That's crazy. That's crazy.
I think you should give the person with the best feedback $10 if they negotiate it up.
Well, look, that's a good way to approach it, Reginald. But I feel like $5 more than adequate enough compensation for somebody to be able to capitalize on.
Well, I'm already unmuted, so I can go.
Okay.
I think this is very in-depth, and you dug deep into everything, every point that you got to. You were able to dive deep, give real world examples. You would make a point, and then you would illustrate that point and explain it pretty well. I think a lot of it is you do a good job of making me want to be in a negotiation at this very moment. You say, I want to get into it. I want to start practicing it. I want to start learning it and developing it. But if I had to say one thing against that would be, I don't know. I can't think of anything. Maybe I think it was a lot. I think it was a lot to try to tackle because it's a huge negotiation. You know what I mean? A huge topic, which is negotiation. Yet having to dive deep into that, 2-hour session is sounds like it might be stretched out to maybe to a little bit longer. Maybe you do one dive deep into the opening, I would like to have seen a little bit more about what's the word about building rapport, how to build rapport, what's the best way, rapport building practices. That would be good, especially getting to the opening, because you said it's one of the most important parts. You know, I think that'll get you to deeper into the negotiation if you get that a little bit more. So that'd be good to do. Maybe have one session for opening, one session for, you know, the main negotiation part, and one session for the closing, and then like, I guess the in-between nuances of the negotiation, which would be things such as like pretty much your tactics, you know, don't do the irritants, you know, the labeling. So all those kind of things I think will be a good separate session. So that's
No,
what I think.
absolutely.
It could be broken up.
No, that's great feedback. That's great. Look, you're gonna make it tough for everybody else, Reginald, because that's great.
You know, I need my $5.
And look, that's what I'm saying. And we'll see if anybody want to go up against you. Right now, Reginald in the driving seat. This right here, yeah, 2 hours is no way near enough time. You know, when it comes to negotiation, it's a lifelong class. Like, it's something that you're going to have to do. You're going to have to practice. You're going to have to practice on numerous occasions. The great thing about being a realtor is that you're going to have plenty of opportunities to practice negotiation. But understand that negotiation is not just this. Like, we're always negotiating something. We always have an opportunity to negotiate, right? Chris calls them low intensity negotiations. We could utilize a lot of the strategies and things that we talked about just in random circumstances. Because remember, negotiations is just about a particular outcome. It could be something as simple as trying to decide where y'all want to go eat, right?
That's a negotiation.
Right. And even if you ain't that really, like, it really ain't that big a deal, but you're like, man, you know what? Let me see if I can get.
Let's just see.
I can get it. Yeah. Practice, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's gonna take time. You know, this 2 hours. Right now, Chris Voss has a master class. For y'all that own master class, he has a master class going through negotiations right now. And I think it's like 50 videos. Like, it's a long thing. It's gonna take a month.
Yeah.
And then again, his book, right? I mean, it's like I said, HAR, really, they give you designations like that are all day, two days all day to go through this. So yeah, so this right here, the point behind this right here is to get you curious.
Mm-hmm.
And start getting you some books. Like, look, Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. Go get it and read it.
Chris Voss?
Yeah. Start there.
Never Split the Difference.
You know, if you're on masterclass, get it. Get his masterclass. Go to YouTube. Start looking at videos. Right? There's another great negotiating class where it's really for sales, but it's called Start with No. I think last name Camp. But I know the title is Start with No. That's another great book about negotiation, because we so busy out here running from that no. Start with the no. Get them to say no first. Right? So but that's great feedback. All right. Anybody else want to put their name in the hat for the $5?
I'm not running for the $5, but as feedback, because like this is my first time like listening to all of this, and it's really useful information. Like, I have been taking classes online, and it's just been read the books, give the quizzes, and you pass the class. But this is like, I would say, like firsthand information, like face to face, and understanding it the way you have been explaining it is so helpful. Like, I can't even put it into words. It was so meaningful, and it's an eye-opener basically, and had like the wheels in the mind turning, listening to everything you said about negotiation tactics and everything. It was really helpful. So thank you.
Absolutely. Ooh, that's a good one. You know, hey, Reggie, she started talking about how good I was, man. I was like, ooh, we want to get that. No, that's Eamon. Eamon's one of our interns with HCC. So I'm definitely glad that she jumped on and offered her feedback. So Eamon, I'm glad that you were able to get that takeaway. And that you said those kind of things. So, you know, there's more to come, Eamon. You know, we got a whole semester of this. All right. Okay, anybody else or any other questions or anything that y'all want me to expound upon before we wrap this, wrap up here in about, a couple minutes?
There is one thing you said, Mike.
Hey, Tanya.
Hey, this is Tanya. You said, hey, how you doing? You said it's good to be, no, being right may mean broke, or not right may mean not being broke. What? Right. Okay, go ahead. Can you please elaborate?
Absolutely. So what I'm saying is that you can be right and be unhappy, right? Like, and really that's in any relationship. Like, I'll use my wife as an example. I can go back and forth with her, trying to force me and want to be right in something and could be right. But right is so important that I'm not paying attention to how it's affecting her and how it's affecting our relationship, right? But I'm going to be right. So regardless of, none of that matters, because what's most important is me being right. What I'm saying is that in real estate and in business, we can approach things like that. And even in negotiation, we can approach things meaning I'm going to prove to you that I'm right. I'm going to do everything. I'm going to throw everything at you. So once it's all said and done, you will acknowledge that I was right. But in that process, you've destroyed rapport, right? You've thrown them in the wrong state. Now they're emotionally out of the place. So now they're making bad decisions. And ultimately, you risk the outcome that you're trying to achieve. So that's what I meant. I was saying I will sacrifice being right to be able to achieve the outcome, because the outcome is more important than me being right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you see that typically happening with like veteran agents working with younger agents?
I see that everybody. Like, I see that just with people, period. Because it's something, and I used to be the same way. Like, I had to get past that. Matter of fact, I had it worse than anybody. I had it worse than everybody, right? I was going to, ego. You're right, Kim. I had it worse than everybody. When they say know it all, me, know it all, right? And I think a lot of it has to do because I'm so curious. I like learning new things. I like, all of that. So because I got all this information I'm getting, I know stuff, right? And you're going to respect the fact that I know stuff. That used to be me. But guess what? It wasn't working, right? I wasn't getting, like I said, me and the wife, we ain't happy. Me and the kids ain't getting along. My bank account, I ain't making no money, right? Because, so I see it happening just period, Tanya. Like, I can't even really just assign it to, older agents and younger agents. But I mean, I'm pretty sure it is, right? Because they've been out here a while.
Well, knowing is one thing, but being able to apply it or, implement it or execute is a total different thing. So, yeah. Thank you for clarifying.
Even with me, that's a great question, Tanya. And even with me, man, I know there's some things that I don't know. And I don't have a problem saying it. I promise you, I don't have a problem. I don't know that. I ain't did that in so long. I tell people all the time, I say, man, it's been 4 years since I worked with a buyer or seller. I have no idea. When some of the questions that my agents ask me, I don't have a problem with it. Now, there was a time, well, and probably you all feel like that sometimes. It's like, well, I don't want to say I don't know because it make me look like I'm weak, or maybe it's going to change their perception of me. And I don't want to do that because that's, I want them to see me in a certain light. All right. Sometimes you just don't know and it's okay.
Right.
Yeah. And what it does is that it puts you in a position to where you're constantly learning, you're constantly growing, you constantly get better. The more you learn, the more you know, the better you get. And guess what? The better you get, more money, the happier, the better results you're going to get in your life, the better you get. So, but no, that was a great question, Tiny. Anybody else? No? All right, people. Well, there's our training on negotiation techniques. Just to my point with Reginald, this isn't a one-off. Negotiation is something that we're going to be discussing on numerous occasions before the end of the year. So be on the lookout. There will be a part 2, part 3, part 4. We're always going to be weaving it in because it is a very critical piece in you being a realtor. Negotiation, communication, we can make it interchangeable. It's critical to your development as a real estate professional. So we're going to be spending time getting y'all right. All right. With that being said, it's going to be on YouTube. We'll have it up on YouTube at least by next week. And we'll just go from there. I tell y'all all the time, I'm easy to find. So, reach out to me, give me a call, shoot me a text. We'll get it taken care of. I do want to remind y'all about the happy hour tomorrow. We're going to be at Saltgrass right here in Meyerland at 3 o'clock. Credit lift to Quana. Matter of fact, her company, when the client signs up for her credit restoration company, they get started on that person's file the same day they sign up. So y'all want to come learn more about that, come hear more about that. And guess what? You get a couple of drinks, get some snacks, right? Start networking with some of the other agents, right? Y'all can, vent, or y'all can collaborate. Y'all can do whatever y'all do. Y'all come together. I'll be there. I ain't passing up no good happy hour. I'm gonna be there. Brooks gonna be there too. We know the kind of events that get him out. So we know he gonna be there too. So that's tomorrow at Saltgrass, 3 o'clock. And then we're doing Boss Talk on Saturday. So for you all that are, it's gonna be a cool event. Like, I'm gonna be on the panel. It's gonna be like Shark Tank. So people are gonna be coming up and they're gonna be presenting their business proposals and their ideas and things like that, like they're going before venture capital. So it just gives us an opportunity, myself and other, people that own their company, to just give some insights as it relates to business operations, planning, things like that. We're going to have a booth there. So I'm looking for people to volunteer to come and maybe stand there and work the booth. There's some opportunity to pick up leads. So we just got to show up and man the booth. So we're going to be doing that as well. If you're interested, make sure y'all send an email or even respond in the group meet that you're interested, so we can put you on the list, put you on the short list, and give you some further details. That's going to be Saturday at 9 o'clock at the Church at Bethel's Family, same place that we had the Real Estate Summit in October last year. So that's going to be there at 9 o'clock. So that's going to be cool on Saturday. And we are doing a concealed handgun license class this Saturday. We are going to be, so if you're interested, or if you have anybody that's interested, we'd have to put you in contact with the instructor for the class. But that's going to be at 9 o'clock on Saturday as well. All right. With that being said, man, y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Wednesday. And we'll be talking to you soon. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. All right. Y'all have a good one.